Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I thought I would address something that came up the other day, and someone has said, yeah, Jason used to be really anti-sumo, now he's pro-sumo, and this is something that we need to discuss because, yeah, I have old videos up to where I don't like the sumo deadlift. I didn't like it even though I've done it in the past, I've used it in the past. I have tried to push people generally in the direction of conventional deadlifting, and that is again due to a conventional mindset and having a very dogmatic mindset. But at a certain point, if you're going to get as strong as possible, as athletic as possible, you're going to coach athletes. Things like this, stuff that I do, these are what I'm into. I've run a very serious full-time coaching business at this point. Whether people accept that or not, whether they want to believe that or not, is completely irrelevant to what's happening in my bank account with my clients. So I need to make that clear. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. That doesn't affect my bank account. So, over to the point. What affects my bank account is if my clients get strong and as explosive as possible so that they keep paying me. That means that if I want to be the best coach possible, then I have to use the best tools available towards people's goals without being a stupid, dogmatic moron. Okay? And that means that if I've held ideas in my head that were not correct, then I'm not being a good coach if I hold on to those ideas. All right, I'm not helping my clients, I'm not helping myself as an athlete, and I'm not helping any of you. There's a point to where we have to step back and really assess our ideas, no matter how long we have been in the iron game, or an athlete, or a coach, or a lifter, or anything else. And there are times when we have to assess ideas based upon the evidence and step back and say, I was wrong, and I was wrong to my own detriment. I was extremely wrong on this one. And I'm not saying the conventional deadlift isn't a great exercise. It is. It's a great exercise. I love the conventional deadlift. I absolutely love it. I arguably could say that it is my favorite exercise. I don't really perform it these days. It's my favorite exercise. Why? From a recovery and an athletic perspective, I just don't feel that it brings as much to the table as a sumo pull does. And let's look at what's going on here and why. A lot of things with the sumo, we need to make this clear so that people understand it. Number one, the sumo deadlift will build your conventional deadlift. The conventional deadlift is a phenomenal test of strength. It's not always, let me state this, I'm not saying it can't be, it's not always the best builder of strength, but it is a phenomenal test of your strength. And anyone who doesn't believe that, again, let's be honest. If you don't believe the conventional deadlift is a true, legitimate test of a person's strength, you're being a moron. You are being as moronic as I was with my dogmatic idea. You're an idiot. You need to reassess your mindset. You literally don't know what you're talking about. That's the case. Right? There's a point where we have to accept that we are being stupid. If you don't understand that it is a legitimate, true test of strength, you're just basically stupid or ignorant. Now, that aside, you can build a conventional deadlift off of a sumo deadlift. In fact, it transfers very, very well. Like, you can take someone who has never done a conventional deadlift in their life, build them to a 500 sumo, walk over and teach them how to conventional deadlift, and I think you'd be shocked at what they pull their very first time doing a conventional deadlift in their entire life. I tell you right now, it's not going to be 400 pounds. It's going to be 450 plus, and depending on their leverages, it might be 500 plus. The very first time a person ever tries it in their entire life. Why? Because the sumo will build the conventional. Now, I'm not saying they both don't have their place. You guys see me do deficit, conventionals, and all sorts of stuff. I do a lot of different types of pulls. Most of my pulling is sumo. The vast majority. Doesn't mean that I don't do other types. They're useful. They're good tools. They're useful. Right? And if we have good tools available, we should probably figure out how to use them the best that we can. Why the sumo? Well, it'll build it. Number two, the sumo is easier to recover from. You can deny that all you want. Less shear on the lower back. Why? Because we can pull more upright. Right? We can have our torso and our low back in a slightly more upright position with the same amount of weight. Puts less shear on your lumbar. That's easier to recover from. If something's easier to recover from, we can do more volume. If we can do more volume, we can get bigger and stronger faster. And we can get faster. Number 2, the wide stance lends itself better to more balance strength. Okay? If we look at a lot of the benefits that you think of for sports and athletes and everything else, that ability to turn out on those wider stance, right? That is going to carry over to other planes in sports. It's overall more athletic for you. It's part of a larger training program. Obviously, I'm not telling you that the sumo deadlift by itself will develop those attributes, but it will contribute, especially if you do a lot of it. Better mobility building tool. Look at what you have to do with your hips. Look at the strain it puts on the abductors, the adductors. Improves better overall mobility. Which again is going to make you a better athlete. More mobility involved. So we have a deadlift that essentially we can recover from better. Makes you a better athlete. Makes you more mobile. Why wouldn't we use this? Why wouldn't we use this tool? Doesn't make sense not to. And like with everything else, it's variable. Look, we can change strength curves with bands and chains. If we need a different height, if you have an athlete who is still building the mobility, you can roll those plates up onto 2 or 3 inch mats and they can do block pulls, or mat pulls in this case. If you have an athlete whose levers don't allow them to correct position, you just as easily do that and still get all these benefits of the sumo. And you can build their mobility off of that. If they don't have the mobility, you can build it. Use progressive range of motion. It's fine. You can get them into that mobility if they can't do it. Just like we can do deficits to get deeper if we need to. Okay? So people who want to argue about why I think for some people the sumo takes a small amount of range of motion out. Okay, we'll do deficit. We're pulling boots like I do. I pulled in boots. What's going to happen if I take those boots off and go to minimal issues later? Well, I'm going to actually probably pull heavier. Not necessary right now, but you can adjust all that. So these ideas that it's cheating because of a slight reduction in range of motion, well, that's adjustable. Go back over to that point. So that's really a completely moot point. But it's easier to recover from. Number 2, it pairs with the box squat extremely well. Why? Because you're doing the same stance. Correctly done wide stance box squats are, based upon the data that we have, come over to the same thing. Easier to recover from than a back squat. You can do more volume. They have the highest rate of force production when measured in the lab of any form of squat. They lend themselves also to the very wide stance. They build the sumo deadlift. Well, if your main form of squatting, which again, rate of force production necessary for all athletes, not just powerlifters, necessary for all athletes, you want to be more explosive. One of the best forms of squatting to be using happens to have better transfer to the sumo deadlift. Then we also come back over to that point of why wouldn't we use the sumo deadlift since we're going to have better performance on it as a result of doing the way that we squat? Why wouldn't we use it? And the sumo will build the conventional anyways. It has carryover. It's a tremendously useful tool. So when I say that I was wrong in the past, it's not just a minor admission of saying, okay, I could have been wrong. So I'm looking at it and saying, me being dogmatic and being a traditionalist, because that's what it comes down to. Conventional deadlift is a traditional lift. It's a very traditional classic lift. And it is an amazing lift, and it's a fun lift. Okay, it is one of the funnest lifts in the world to perform. It's just a fun, awesome lift. What I'm saying is that in this context, for the serious athlete, it might be a better test of strength than it is an actual training tool. And I think the sumo deadlift is an actual training tool and strength and power building tool. And yes, a power building tool, because look what I'm doing with it right now. I think the sumo deadlift brings more to the table as a tool. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.